One of the bigger debates within the Tolkien fandom to emerge since the production of Peter Jackson's excellent trilogy continues to divide the community. It seems like an issue that could be easily solved by simply referring to the text. That would be true, though there are similes and metaphors at work in the text at the time, and this issue comes up when looking at the encounter between Gandalf and Durin's Bane in the Fellowship of the Ring, and there are some key descriptors here that we will take into account in our analysis. There are arguments for Balrogs both having wings and not having wings, and today we will look at both sides of that argument. Let's get into it.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
Hey guys, and welcome to The Broken Sword. For anyone who likes Lord of the Rings and all things Tolkien, hit that like and subscribe button to help us continue making videos like this and get alerts when new content comes out. To be completely fair with this debate, we will start with arguments from the text that led one to conclude that Balrogs have wings. The most common source for this perspective comes from the description of the Balrog in the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. The language explicitly refers to wings, spread out from one end of the hall to the other. The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand, Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. It raised the whip, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. In the book Morgoth's Ring, we see another piece of language that could be taken as evidence that Balrogs are winged creatures. Swiftly they arose, and they passed with winged speed over Heathlam, and then came to Lamnoth as a tempest of fire. Now, this could simply be a metaphor, a poetic way of saying they moved with great speed, but it could also be taken as a literal reference to wings. We find similar language in Appendix A, Durin's Folk. Thus they roused from sleep a thing of terror that flying from Thangorodrim had laid hidden at the foundations of the earth since the coming of the hosts of the west, a Balrog of Morgoth. Now to look at some reasons why it's more likely that the Balrogs were not winged creatures. Looking back at that quote from the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, it's easy to see this passage as a poetic metaphor, such as the wings of shadow. Whereas we see numerous examples of flight used as a metaphor, what we never see is a Balrog actually flying or described as doing so, which goes a long way towards proving that the majority of the language we get which mentions wings is not meant literally, as that can be seen from the descriptions there are, such as that of the encounter between Gandalf and Durin's Bane at the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. But perhaps what is more forceful as an argument is that at least two Balrogs have fallen to their deaths, which is not something we would imagine could happen to a creature capable of flight. In the books we read, many are the songs that have been sung of the duel of Glorfindel, with the Balrog upon the pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. Circling back to the Lord of the Rings, we see again in the Two Towers chapter 5 the White Rider. I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place, and broke the mountain side where he smote it in his ruin. Another problem with taking poetic metaphor seriously are the wider implications of what this would mean for the text. If everything was to be taken literally, the number of descriptions which involve flying as a way to describe flee with great speed are numerous, and would make some statements which are otherwise normal ridiculous, such as the events which happen shortly after the Balrog appear. Gandalf came flying down the steps and fell to the ground in the midst of the company. I'm pretty certain none of the readers imagined Gandalf had wings. The first mention of Balrogs in Tolkien's Legendarium can be found in the Fall of Gondolin, which comes to us from the Book of Lost Tales. In this work, they are described as lesser beings and are numbered in the hundreds. But this argument is sort of irrelevant because there is no description of wings. What is stronger, however, is the explanation that Melkor did not know the secret of flight. Thus he would catch many eagles and torture them to gain this knowledge. They told him nothing, and so he excised their wings and made a pair for himself. This would all be unnecessary if Melkor or his Balrogs could fly, so it's a good argument against Balrogs as winged creatures in their conception. It would also be a bad move for Gandalf. Had he destroyed a bridge to stop the Balrog from crossing to the other side if the creature could fly over it? For a flying Balrog, Gandalf's actions would not only have been meaningless, but something he would have known to be useless in stopping the Balrog. What was to keep the creature from simply flying over the chasm and descending on its enemies? But in the end, we here at The Broken Sword leave the question to you and your interpretation. Tolkien's work is a wondrous one, and we're not here to tell you how to envision your favourite character or creature within that world. If you think Balrogs are cooler with wings, fantastic. No one here would say you're wrong. There is room in this world for different ideas, and we can all disagree without being disagreeable. Now, after listening to everything I've stated in this video, how do you feel about the topic of the wings of Balrogs? Of course, we know that we will see Balrogs within the Rings of Power. We have actually seen some in the prologue if you missed it, but there will of course be one more heavily featured as we know from the trailers. Do you think that this Balrog will have wings? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Okay, that's it from me today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Time has come, as always, to thank all of our patrons and channel members. I said in last week's video, but we have some awesome updates coming very soon. We're even getting photos back of some props and costume and weapons, and trust me, it's very exciting. If you want to support the channel and our short film project, then you can check us out on Patreon yourself. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.
Build